Hello, this is an application that we made for SDG 13, which focuses on climate action. I built this code alongside Khan Rubaiyat Islam and Abdel Hadi Naim. Listen, right?
Hi.
This, uh, this application focuses on three main parts of SDG 13, which is awareness and uh, taking action. For that, we're using a planner, which allows the user to create tasks that help them to plan out what they want to do. A stats module, which allows the users to see the carbon emissions for every region or country. And tips, which allows the users to see tips to help them know and learn about climate change and how to combat it. So now we need to explain the code. Before we get into the modules, we need to get into what these mean for login and file handler. So file handler is a class that allows the app to load files easily. First, we have a method that returns a boolean, which is called contains illegal characters. Takes an input, field name, and illegal characters. This is meant to check if the user input is illegal. This is mainly used for checking like username, password inputs in case they have an illegal character because of the way the file is saved. Next up, we have read file, which uses buffered reader. This loads the file and goes through every line and returns all of the lines into an array list. And lastly, we have write file. This takes in file name and lines, and then it creates a buffered router. It goes through all of the lines, line by line, and then writes them into the file, and then saves it. Next up, we have login. Login has basically has things that have to do with the user. Firstly, you have the base user class. This user class is used as a base for later classes that inherit from it. It has a name, password, of course, as a constructor, and getters and setters. Then we have the user manager. This manages the user, especially when it comes to reading the file and logging in. So read file, as you can see, it calls in file handler, and then from the lines that it gets, it splits them from this pipe character, since we're using pipe to separate the data. For write user file, we go through every line that is given from users, and we add this pipe character just to ensure that the data is saved correctly. Now for login, we get the username, password, and users, the list of users, and we go through every user. If the user that we got is the same as, if the username and password is the same as the users, then that means the login is successful and we create the user. For registration, it does not have to check, as the username and password do not exist yet. So it simply creates the username and password immediately, and then saves it into the user files. We also have users exist to ensure whether the username already exists or not. This is used for registration this is used for registration, and it's going to be shown like that later in a few minutes. Next up, we have the base login class for this file, which has the login function and the login method, and returns a user object. First, we initialize the required variables, and then let's give a list of what the user can do, which is login, register, or simply exit the program. Here, you may see this a lot in the code. This is to ensure that the user input is within the valid range. It's both a number and within the range of allowed inputs. So it checks. After that check is complete, it converts the input to an integer, and then goes through this switch case. First, we have switch 0, which means exit, which is why the system exits. Switch 1 is for login, so it asks for the username, password, and then goes to the login in the user manager. If the user is still null, that means the login was not successful, which means either the username or password was incorrect. For 2, which means registration, it asks for the username. It checks if it has a illegal character, because as we said, the pub character is used to separate data in the file. And also it checks if the username already exists. If the username already exists, then it prints out an error and goes back. Otherwise, it continues on to create a password for the password, checks if there's an illegal character. If not, then it registers the user and saves it. Since once the user logs in or registers, means that user is no longer null, which exits this while loop and returns the user. You have this just for testing purposes in case we need to test the file itself without anything else. Next up, I want to get into my module, which is the planner module. The planner module has a planner user class, which inherits from the base user that we've seen from login. What does inherit mean? Basically, it means that it gets all of the methods and attributes from the user. And we can also add its own attributes and methods that user cannot access, that the base user cannot access. So planner user has tasks and getters and setters. We also have a planner user manager. This one just manages like the planner user. So we have the user as an attribute, getter and setter. We also have get user tasks and set user tasks, which is kind of like a getter and setter, but it goes into the user itself. Then we have the methods, which are add task, remove task, and check task if empty. Add task creates a new task. This task class is going to be explained later on. Based on the task name, task description, category, and sets the status as 0, which is the default. Move tasks removes the task according to index, and check if task if empty, checks if the task is empty. Next up, we have the task class. It has the name, description, category, and status. It also has a categories and status array, which is just which is final, which means it does not change. It's constant. Of course, we have a constructor. We have getters and setters. Now here we have this, which returns the string from the array based on the index of the task category. If we want the number, then we use getThrow. We also have setters. Next up, we have the task manager. Task manager allows us to manage tasks more easily. We have an array list of tasks as an attribute, of course, a getter and setter. And then we also have a get specific task based on the index. We have list tasks, which also has an option to be detailed or not. If it's not detailed, it will list the task as is, just the name. If we want it detailed, then it will print out the description, category, and status. We can also list categories with statuses to get a list of all categories and statuses available. And we also have the update methods. So updates task name, description, the category, and status, which are the task, the selected task, and the selected part of the update. Then we get into the main class of the file, planner module. We have read task file, which just like read user file back in login, it reads the task file using file handler Also, we also use the pipe character to separate it to name, description, category, and status. For write task file, we pass in the user and it gets all of the tasks from the user. To ensure that no data is lost, we first save all of the lines from the original file, as long as they do not start with the username. Then we go through all of the tasks and add the task accordingly. Next up, we have the main method, which is called run here because the main method is here for testing purposes. In case we want to run the file as a standalone, we initialize some variables and we get into the main loop. So as you can see here, we have view task, add task, move task, update task, saves changes, and exit. So 6 choices in total. Again, we check if the input is valid, change the input into an integer, and then into a switch case. In the case of 0, that means the user wants to exit this module. So just set it to true, which exits the while loop. In case the user wants to view tasks, it checks if that user's tasks are empty. If it is empty, then it will print out there are no tasks. Otherwise, it will go to the task manager and list all tasks. In the case that the user wants to add a task, it asks for the name, description, and category, making sure that the input has no illegal characters. For category, it prints out all of the categories, and the user can choose. A category by typing the number of the category, and then it adds the task to the user. If the user wants to remove a task, it first checks if the user has any tasks. If he does, then it asks for which task to delete and lists them all. It takes the input and ensures that it is a valid input, and then removes the task. For update tasks, same deal as with the remove. It has to check if the user has tasks and checks if the input is valid. And then the user has a choice to update name, description, category, and status. So the user inputs the choice, and according to what he chooses, that's what gets updated. Okay, for 5, which is save task, the application will save all of the changes accordingly. This is all from my module. We will move to Abdel Hadi's module for stats.
Hi, my name is Abdul Hadi, and this is going to be the breakdown of the stats module. It is one of the components of our climate action application. This module allows users to explore and analyze carbon dioxide emissions from various countries and regions using data from a CSV file. Now, let's walk through the module class by class. Starting with the region class, the purpose of the region class is to represent a country or region and store all emission data associated with it. Um, we see a region string name, string code name, array list for yearly emissions. It's a constructor that initializes a region with its name, two character code, and a list of emissions by year. Moving on, we have three getter methods. We have three getter methods. The first one is get name. It returns the region name. The second one is get code name. It returns a short code for a region or a country, for example, MY for Malaysia. And the third is get yearly emissions, which returns the list of emissions for the region. It's used in the emission calculator and select year when performing calculations. Moving on to the second class, the region manager class. The purpose for this class is It manages all region objects and allow for fast searching. The region manager array list is a constructor that accepts a list of regions, and it's used in the main class after loading data. The second is a get region method that returns a full list of all the regions, and it can be used for listing or future expansions like pagination or sorting, basically. There's another get regions string region name that searches for a region by its full name or code name. Moving on to the third class, which is emission calculator class. This is the main class that performs the calculations such as total, average, maximum, minimum on emissions for a range. Now, the first emission calculator region is the first constructor is that it accepts a region to work on. Then we have a get total emissions method that loops through all yearly emissions and returns the sum of the emissions. Then we have the get average emissions, which calculates the total and returns the average based on the total amount. Then we have the get max emissions, which finds the year with the maximum carbon dioxide emission and returns the value and the year. Then we have the get minimum emission, which does the opposite of maximum. It finds the year with the lowest non-zero emission. Then moving on, we have the yearly emission class. This class stores emission data for a single year, and the yearly emission constructor, which it sets the year and emission amount. Okay, then we have the get year method, which returns the year, and then a get emission, which returns the emission value used in calculations and data display. Moving on to the main class, the stats module. First, first of all, we have load stats, the load stats class, which loads and processes the emission, which loads and processes emissions data from the CSV file. Basically, how it works is it reads the two files from the stats CSV and the country codes.csv. It loops through each line, skipping the header row, groups the data into region objects, and fills them with the yearly emission values. And then it returns a complete list of region objects. It's used in the main where the data is loaded at the beginning. And now, if we move on to the select year region, yep, now we move on to the select year, which manages the year's selection, input, and output. Basically, it displays the emission stats for a selected region based on the user's input. How it works is basically it shows a menu with six options, the total, the average, the maximum, the minimum, random, and exit. There's also an option for selecting a specific year if the user desires. It calls the appropriate emission calculator methods, and if a specific year is selected, it manually searches and displays the emission value. Now, if we move on to the list regions, this uh, this lets the user pick from groupings like continents, subregions, or income groups. How it works is the user picks a selection from 0, 1, or 2 the cases, and if he chooses the 0 case, it selects the continents. If he uses the case number 1, it goes on to subregions, and 2 for income. This shows the available options from the corresponding static array in the region, and it takes the user's input and passes it to the select year method. Uh, Now we move on to the main method. The purpose of this is that the starting point, this is the starting point of the module. It handles menu navigation. How it works is it loads all data via the load stats class. It sets up the region manager, and then it shows a main menu with these options: the whole world, the continents, subregions, income level, specific country, and an exit option. Depending on the user's choice, it calls the desired methods, and then it carries out the procedures to give the data needed. Uh, And that is the stats module. Now I would like to pass it on to the Khanrubai to explain the tips module. Thank you.
Uh, okay, Hadi, thank you for giving me the opportunity. I am Khan Rubaiyat Islam. Now I am gonna talking about my module, which is tips module. This module is connected to the SDG 13 action, which means it helps people protect the environment and fight against the climate change. So, why it is important? Because many people want to save the planet, but they don't know how to do. So, this module can solve this problem by giving users some green tips like that. So now I'm gonna describe my code. So first of all, we can see that there are necessary classes in there. There are scanners of which and of which gets input from the user, and there are random tips in there, and which picks random tips, and also there are an array list of which is stored multiple tips in there, and also we can see that there are IO expression in there which handle error when working with files. Now we are going to the tip file. In tip file, there are this tip classes represent to each tips. There we can see that there are tip tags in there, which the actual advices, and there are we can see that there are tip category in there. So this is the number of category like 1, 2, 3, like that. And there are we can see that there are categories in there. This represent the list of categories like energy, water, and waste, something like that. So now yeah, we are going to the we can see that there are get and setter methods in there. So this is the get tips, the get raw categories, and there are get categories is there. Now we are moving to the next classes, which is tip user classes. These classes extend the users to add favorite tips like that. And also we can see that there are constructors to make the new users with or without favorite tips. And also there are an array we can add their array list and also set favorite tips which to get and which user to get and set the favorite tips. So now we are going to the tips user manager. In tips user manager we use a private, and this manages the tip users object. And also we can see that there are tips user manager, tips user get, tips user, and also public void set tip user, which these methods are used to get and update the user. And also we can see one method, this is we can use array list, and also public void add favorite tips, which one method returns all favorite and other adds to the new ones. Now we are going to the read tip method. Read tip method. In this method opens the climate text tips or opens the climate tips txt file in it, and it split each line and create a tip object with text and category. And there we can see that there are read favorite tips method in there. Uh, this checks favorite tips dot txt file and matches the username and adds their saved tips into the memory. and we can see that there are save favorite tips method in there. This save selected the favorite tips by writing them in front username and also txt tip txt to the file. Now we are going to we can see that there are we can use in boolean string, and it checks if a string all numbers useful to avoid errors when users enters the text instead of numbers. So it works like that. So we can see that there are the main method in there. Now moving to the main method. In main method is it is the brain of a program. So first of all, we can see that there are a scanner. We use a scanner in there, and also this is our output. Great green tips helper and greater random tips, safeties from the user, etc. etc. It displays the choice to the user, and then we use switch. In switches, depending on the option, the program does different things. So selected to the random tips without repeating. Sorry. In we can use cases in there. So in first cases, we selected random tips without repeating. In second class case 2, this is the save favorite tips. So user enter the number like 1 2 3 and save them to a file. And in the case 3, they show the favorite and display all the previously and saved tips. And case 4, we are filtered tips by category, and this in there the user chooses like energy, water, or voice, show the related tips like that. And then now the case is 0, this is the exit, and then close the program. So that's why the program is gonna be a work, and that is thank you.
Okay, now that we've seen all of the modules, of course, we need to combine them all together, which is why we have the main file. The main file, which contains also the main class and the main method, will first go through the login class, which is again back here. Once the user is logged in, it will ask the user which module they would like to use, or if they would like to log out or exit. It checks for a valid input and then goes into the switch case. If the user inputs 0, which is exit, the application just quits. If the user chooses 1, so it goes into the planner module. 2, that's stats. 3, that's tips. And then 4, it just sets logout as true, which is the condition for this while loop to exit, and goes back into this while loop to log in again. Now that we have seen all the program at work, the program from behind the scenes, why don't we see it doing the work? So let's run it. Now we are in the login screen. We have the choice to either log in, register, or exit. So let's log in. Let's say the username is test 1 2 3 4 5, and now we are logged in. Let's say I want to register. So log out. I'm now logged out. Register as a new user. Let's say ABC 987. We are now logged in as ABC. And we have made a new account. So if I try to log in ABC 987, I'm now logged in. Okay, let's start with, let's say I want to use the planner module. So I could view tasks, which I have none no, so far. I could also add the tasks. Let's say I want task name, task. Description of this is a task. Category, I have 6 choices. Let's say I want low carbon transport, and now task is added. You can view the task, you can see the task name and all of its details. Let's say I want to add another task, task 2, and another task. Let's say this is green purchasing, and now if we view, we now have 2 tasks. Let's say I made a mistake. I didn't want to add task 2. It was a horrible idea. So I decided to remove it. I can choose either task 1 or task 2, and now it's removed. If I view the tasks, we only have task 1 left. Let's say I did some progress with task 1, so I could update it. Choose select task 1. I could choose name, description, category, or status. I want to update the status. Now, since I started working on it, let's say it is in progress. So if we view the task, it's now set as in progress. Now I could also save changes. So just to be careful with that, if you exit without saving the changes, all everything will be lost. So it's a must to save the changes. If you don't want to save, then just don't. So now we can exit, and we're back to the main menu. So Abdul Hadi will continue working, will continue explaining the input and output of this module of Stats Viewer.
Yes, so now if we start, we press 2 for the stats viewer, and it gives us the criteria that we want to view. There's the whole world, continents, subregions, incomes, and countries. We will start with the whole world. If you press 1, it shows us it gives us an option to select a year between 1750 and 2030 or any of the following. If we select a random year, let's say 1952, it gives us the total emissions for the year is 1952. Now, if we ask the total of all the years, we press 1 and it shows us the total emissions recorded from 1750 to 2023. Now we move on to the average. We press 2, it gives us the average 6.614 megatons. If we want the maximum, we press 3, it gives us the maximum and the year in which the maximum was recorded. Now, if we want the minimum, we press 4, it gives us the minimum and the year as well. And if we want a random year, we press 5. And in this case, it has given us 1878. If we press random again, it will give us a different year like 2018. Then we can exit from here and we can move on to continents. Sorry. Now, if let's say we choose Europe, we press 3, and then it gives us the same options. We can take total, average, maximum, minimum, random as the same. Now, if we exit, then we can go to subregions. Now, in the subregions, we have the options of Central America, European Union, Middle East, non-OECD, and OECD. If we choose European Union, we press 2, and it gives us the same options again. Let's select a random year, 5, and it gives us a random year, 1809, and the recorded carbon dioxide emissions. Now we go back, we exit, we press 0, and we go to income. In income, we have 4 options: high income, upper middle income, lower middle income, and low income. If we go to low income, we press 4, and it gives us the same options again. We can check, let's say we need the average. We press 2, and it gives us the average of all the low income countries, which is 91.35 megatons of carbon dioxide. Now, if we exit, we go back, and then we move on to number 5, countries. Here we can write a country name or a 3-character code. Now, let's say Japan. We write Japan as the country name, and we get the same options. It gives us a different year frame because Japan started recording in 1868. Um, Now we can, let's say, a random year, 5. Yep, it gives us 1961. And then we exit and we go to countries again. And now we type the 3 character code for Japan, which is JAP. It's an invalid input because for Japan it's JPN. Yep. And then if we can see that it gives us the same options and it can go on. Now we exit and then we exit again and we can move on to the tips manager, which will be explained by Khan Rabai.
Thank you, Abdul Hadi. Now I am going to explain this module, which is the tips module. So, if we enter the type 1, so it says green, it describe the green tips helper. So we can see that there are 4 options in there. So if user choose one, get a random tip. So it will be say that how many tips do you want to see. So if user put in there three, and then in there it shows the 3 tips is in there. So now if user choose the number option 2, so in there it can set that which tips do you want to save from the last shown tips. So if user use multiple tips in there and also saved by one, so if user saved one, then it saved its selected tips was saved. And then we can see that there are in 3 options. If users want to show the favorite tips which he saved, so if he enter 3, and then he said that he show that there are which tips he saved, it will be shown in there. Now if user choose 4, then enter 4, then it has said that there are 3 categories in there: energy, water, and waste. If user want to see the two, choose 2, then it shows the water categories. All the tips are in there. And if again user choose 4, and then if they want to show the category number 1, energy, so it shows the categories number 1, like that. So and then go to the exit, so the user input 0, and then it's gonna be done. So this is the like this. Thank you for your listening.
We hope that this application helps people realize about climate change and helps people get closer to the SDG 13 goals. Thank you for listening to our presentation, and goodbye.